Episode 7 of Andor, which kicks off the third arc of the season, has dropped on Disney+. So let's go ahead and get started talking about it. Let me know what you thought about it down below in the comment section. This is a spoiler review, so feel free to spoil away down below in the comment section. If you haven't watched the episode yet, you clicked on the wrong video. Go watch the video, then come back over here, and you don't need to put spoiler warnings in the comment section. Everyone has been warned by what I just said and the title of the video. With that said, so this episode is very much a follow-up to everything that took place really all the way up to this point in time in the series, where the first arc was about Andor essentially escaping his planet, trying to get away with these crimes that he committed, and in the process getting swept up into this heist plan that is actually rebellion plan. So you get to this episode, and you see the aftermath of really everything that's taken place. And it's certainly much slower than the previous episode. And unlike what they did with episode 4 that kicked off the second arc, this one doesn't make it as clear and obvious where we're headed. It's not as easier to see what this next arc is about. There's a couple things that you go, okay, it could be about that. And, oh, what happened to Andor at the end there? That's not good. Where's that headed? There's a few different things taking place. Some things move along. But it's even more so than setting up an obvious next goal. It's very much about looking back at the consequences of everything that's taken place. And most of what's happened in the first 6 episodes was in a pretty short period of time, because the first 3 episodes is like over like 3 days. It's like a weekend. Some people are murdered. He's trying to get out of there. And then stuff goes down in the 3rd episode. And then quickly we get the next arc where you have Andor on this heist where they're going to do it in just a few days. So once again, very quick. They took place over a very short window of time. And then you get to this episode and there start being these pretty significant time jumps. It's of the episodes up to this point in time, it's quite different. Plays very different. And I loved so much about it. There was so much in here that was so good without being big and flashy, without being big action sequences, as you start to see everything come together for individuals, for the rebellion. There's a lot of really cool kind of stuff that went down in this episode that it's easy to miss. It's easy to just kind of have it and go like, okay, yeah, that happened, whatever. And if you pause and think about them, there's a lot in there. So, previous episode ended with the heist taking place and the news starts to spread about it. And so you get to this episode and making sure that's plugged in. Looked over, my camera was about to be unplugged. I thought I should probably plug that in properly. It's very much about this heist shook the Empire. Everyone heard about it. Everyone cares about it. And you're kind of seeing what everyone's response to this is. And so you get an interaction between Mon Mothma and our mysterious Skarsgård. And she didn't realize this is what he was doing. She wasn't necessarily ready for this. She doesn't seem to oppose it. She's very passionately like, what have you done? Do you realize what you've done? At the same time, being like, okay, I guess this is what we're about. I guess this is what we're supposed to be doing. All right. I guess you did do the right thing, but oh man, now it's on. It's actually happening. This is really happening, and I'm going to have to deal with the consequences for my conscience of what we're doing, and is it really worth it? She has to own that. And there's so many little lines of dialogue in there of that just the stuff we have to stop and think what the rebellion really was, what it really cost. He's like, well, people are going to start suffering. He's like, yeah, that's the point. It's the whole point. But we didn't commit a heist. Like, we needed money to do a heist, but more importantly, we need the Empire to overreact. That was our goal, is to cause the Empire to start to oppress people. ultimately our goal is to stop them from oppressing anyone. But in this moment, they're oppressing everyone at just the point where I think he used the language of like slowly choking someone, to where they're like okay with it. They're just they're absolutely choking. They're miserable, but they're not at the point where they're fighting back. So you need to push the Empire to be obvious that clearly they're the bad guys. Clearly. And you just think like that's the segment of the rebellion we're watching. The people that are making these choices are doing it to cause the Empire to make people suffer. Whew! That is quite a different perspective on the rebellion from the usual heroes and villains of the classic trilogy of films. And so you kind of move through. They give us an update on pretty much everyone where they're at. So we kind of have our insecure guy from the first 3 episodes that led the not Imperial raid, but middleman raid that went so poorly. And he's desperately trying to redeem his name and is motivated by everything he's seeing taking place. And so it just takes this job working in a cubicle. And the episode, it's you don't know exactly how much time takes place in the episode, but clearly it's a length. And so they show him at the beginning getting that job, and then they show him at the end still kind of working in his little space cubicle, and showing like him is just plucking away, trying to earn his way to get to do bigger things. Other things coming along here are Imperial Spy Division. They announce, I guess, their version of the Patriot Act of like, terrible thing has happened, therefore government reach is okay. You can spy on people. And so Imperial Spy Lady that knows there's a rebellion, and she seems to have a good read on what's taking place. Like, no, they want you to overreact. Stop. The Empire's doing everything wrong. They're doing precisely what will provoke more of this. She sees what's going on, decides to leverage this new act to get information and do this big deep dive search to get stuff to put the report together to prove everything she's been claiming all along. All of it leading to this big get together of all the heads of the divisions or whatever. And the guy that was holding her back in episode 4 once again is like, hey, she's overreaching, she's in trouble, she should be in trouble, slap her hand for what she's doing. And the lady's like, actually calls out the system. She's like, you guys think that the rebels care about our little systems? They're holding us back by using these systems, what we're doing here. And kind of calling out the boss guy, like, systems need to evolve or die. Finger points at him and like doubles, triples down on everything. I've got a report, I got everything. And her little gamble pays off. And the other guy like loses his job. She gets it. And it seems like the guy knows she's onto something here that's actually like taking initiative to track down whatever's happening here. And then she's like, hey, good job. Watch your back. He knows how this place works. You don't mess with people like that and get away with it. So the big one in here with Andor is he goes back home. And no one's happy to see him. And everyone's like, you shouldn't be here. And they're a little bit kind of weird about him being back. And he's trying to pay his debts and make everything right. You learn that just how things have gotten really bad there. People are blaming him. His ex-girlfriend is like clearly frustrated with him, blames him, but also doesn't blame him. She realizes that it wasn't really his fault, but it was kind of his fault, and all the mixed feelings that people have. But most importantly, with the mother character, he's trying to take her with him. And he's got the money, like, hey, let's get out of here, we'll go somewhere else where we're not being oppressed like this. She's like, okay. And you can tell she's not going to leave. It's pretty obvious that she's not going to leave. He's not seeing it, but we see it. So you kind of move on. And I just love the second scene that they have. And he's like, why, we got to get out of here, get somewhere else. And she's like, I found something here to say. There's a reason to say. He's like, what are you talking about? It's like, rebellion. And he just flabbergasted. What are you talking about, rebellion? What do you know? This is not a good idea. She's like, yeah, did you hear about that heist thing that took place? And it's a scene that plays so interesting because the person talking has less information than the person being talked to and the audience. And so we interpret everything she's saying so differently. And there's so many things we want Andor to say that he can't say. And you're like, did you hear about this deal? And he's like, it's just a heist. What are you talking about? It's just a heist. Like, it's not just a heist. It's like a sign of hope. It's empowerment. And they do flashbacks of what happened, some things that happened before, their backstory, and how the other person in their little trio ended up getting hung in the public square. And she talks about, like, I couldn't walk down the square for years and years and years because of what they did to him. And then after I heard about that heist, I put my jacket on and walked through there proud. And they use this character that up to this point hasn't been a symbol of rebellion. She's just mother figure. She's scavenger. Clearly not an Imperial, but not using her as in any way a symbol of the rebellion. You don't see her and think, I bet she's flying an X-Wing soon. You have this conversation, and she represents what that heist meant to all these other people. And it's fascinating because it doesn't mean that to our lead character that we followed on that adventure. He was there. He was talking with the people involved in it. He was recruited by the people that want to create this this wave of disruption. And he just isn't on board with it yet. And she's the one that's kind of saying to him what we as the audience want him to get. She's saying to him what our Skarsgård character wants him to get. That, like, this is bad. I don't care that it's getting worse here. I've got rebellion right here where I'm at. I'm good. I don't need to leave. And you can't stay and I can't go. I thought that was so profound. Yeah, I thought it was just like great Star Wars that doesn't require pew, 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 pew and laser swords. Of just character moments. Pausing, like, what were normal people feeling as the rebellion started? As there first started being news that the Empire could be hurt. I thought that was cool. That was cool to me. So, other and super important one in there, another one that kind of showed the passage of time, is that you have the lady that led our little heist mission. She's almost unrecognizable because now she's in city mode, not in mission mode. So hair's done, makeup, everything, dressed up, fancy clothes, not tactical clothes. And maybe I missed it. And I don't know if we were supposed to know who the character she was talking to is. If there's a lot of characters in the show and they move real fast and they look very different in different scenes. So I'm not sure if I'm supposed to know who that character is. But they're talking about this mission, and essentially they order her to go and kill Andor as a loose end. And you start going like, okay. The whole premise of this show, the starting point for Andor in Rogue One, is that moral ambiguity, the costs of freedom, the horrible things you must do to fight tyranny. And so it lives in that zone. And you're feeling it all along, little things that happen all along. And you still have new ones that make you go, ooh, that's not good. You have this little moment where they're going to send someone to kill Andor because he helped them accomplish their mission. The show kind of, that maybe this is the brilliance of the show, or the interesting nature of the show, is that, so we know by the end of it, he's going to get sucked in. So the question is, how does he get sucked in? How is this situation where someone's out to go get him, to shoot him, going to turn into him end up joining? What does that look like? What are the pieces that lead to the final outcome? And that's where you have a show where you know the end, and so that creates the mystery of what pieces get us there. What has to take place in this person to get him to where we know he's going to be? We also get some Mon Mothma in here. We talked about her a little bit earlier, but she's at a dinner party, and she has an old friend there, and she's trying to figure out how to gain access to funds, she needs allies. So she meets up with a friend, and she's trying to, like, feel him out. And another one of these things of, like, how did the rebellion play out? How did these people of influence reach out to the other people? Because you're in a place where you know if you talk to the wrong person, you die. So what do those conversations look like as you're trying to figure out who's on your side? So he talks to an old friend, and she starts like putting things out there, and he's like, you got to know, I'm not a big fan of the Empire, and I got pretty hard edge politics. And she keeps talking like, yeah, actually, my politics are more hard edge than yours. And I need your help. And he's like, I need to know what it is if I'm going to help you. She's like, well, I'm not going to tell you because my politics are probably too hard edge for you. And just like feeling that the little things that had to go on, the conversations that were only half conversations that were required in order for the rebellion to take place as we know it. That is really fun. And then it closes out on this little bit with Andor. Now he's off on holiday planet. Starts off with even like party music in the Star Wars universe, and he's hooking up with some girl and shuffling something around, and then something's going on the planet. He's like just walking around and there's people running, and he has nothing to do with any of it. He's just curious. He's just looking around, and Stormtrooper is like, "Why are you running?" He's like, "I'm not running. Why are you sweating? I'm outdoors. It's hot. Why are you looking around? Because there's people running around and you're walking around with a gun. Like, I'm looking to figure out what's going on. You seem suspicious." And then was it IG-11? Am I getting my bonds confused or am I getting it right? A version of that one kind of shows up, walks around the corner, and you immediately go, "Oh, are we in the process of slowly making our friends?" And you stop to think, who are the people that should show up in this show that make sense, that fit the Rogue One world of Star Wars? Not just Cameo Palooza, but who actually fits in that world. And you see that design of a droid and you go, oh, I like where this is headed. But he ends up getting arrested and sentenced for all. You think, he's actually killed police officers. He's actually committed a major heist. He is, in many ways, one of the most wanted people in the entire Empire. Maybe the most wanted person. They just don't know it's him. And instead, he's arrested for something he didn't do. And he's trying to think, what are those things that are going to radicalize Andor? He's seen so much of the horrible things that they've done. He's now been a part of fighting back, but as more of a mercenary, hired gun, than as a true believer. What are the things that pushes him in that direction of actually joining in the fight? So he gets arrested and he gets sentenced to 6 years for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, literally having nothing to do with whatever was going on. He didn't even know what was going on. And this was originally 6 months. Now it's 6 years, and they just send him off. And that's the kick. This is the kickoff for this new arc. Our guy's in jail. And it's where like this episode takes place over a lot more time. I mean, how does that work? But that's kind of the way it needs to take place, where you just have to like slow cook Andor's arc to become this pivotal member of the rebellion that would go on suicide missions. Like, what is that? What does it take to get him there? And we're moving right along to make that happen. So, I think without question, as I've said all along, easily the best written of the Star Wars shows, best directed. You know, it doesn't have the flash and the pop of Mandalorian season 1 and 2. And some of that's just the advantage of when you do a show that you have lightsabers, force users, Cameo Palooza. There's just like a draw to that. It's flashy. It's prime ingredients. And that Mandalorian seems like very simple cooking with prime ingredients. And this feels like a chef working with lesser ingredients, but really cooking up something nice. It's not as flashy. It's not as fast. It takes more of your patience, but it's really, really good. Let me know what you thought down below in the comments, and keep talking movies and TV.